It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission on Monday, December 15th, 2014 to order. Roll call, Commissioner Witcher, not here. Commissioner Littlefield.
Here, sir.
Commissioner White, not here. Commissioner Hale.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Jenkins. Commissioner George, not here. And Commissioner Yockel.
Here.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to have a motion concerning the minutes of the November 17, 2014 meeting.
I'll move they be approved.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have a second for the minutes from last meeting?
We were absent.
It's not an issue, is it? No, not an issue. Somebody can second. And you
I'll
don't have to be
second.
here. Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Yockel. Do we have any talk on the meeting minutes? Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Schuline, seconded by Commissioner Yockel to approve the meeting minutes. Can I have your votes, please? Go ahead and vote. Okay, meeting minutes are approved. The report on licensed taxi and record service will be in January. The consent docket, is there anybody here to speak against item 4, the consent docket? Okay. Okay, nobody here to speak against the consent docket? Okay, do we have a motion concerning the consent docket?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second for the consent docket?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Jenkins. Any discussion on the consent docket? Oops. Yeah, we need 1 and 3. Can you turn them off, please? Can you turn off number? Very good. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any talk on item 4A for the consent docket? I'd just like to thank all the record services for the work that they do out there. It's a very hard job. Thank you very much. Okay. Can we have a vote on the consent docket, please? Okay. Item is approved. Again, thanks for all you do. Item 5A, Star Cab LLC, doing business as Star Cab Van, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73109. To consider an application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity from Star Cab LLC, doing business as Star Cab Van, to operate 120 vehicles and taxi service. Anybody here to speak on this one? Sorry. It looks like we have 3. Carl, you'd like to jump up? Carl, if I can have your name and your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. My name is Carl Gaskins. I live at 1424 Northwest 28th Street in Oklahoma City. The Star Cab application, I think, needs to be declined or denied. Their color scheme for this new company, Star Cab Van, is identical to their Star Cab color scheme with the exceptions of a little tiny logo that says Van. In the past, Traffic Commission has denied applications with similar paint schemes because they weren't different enough. They have to be unique. Example going forth there was Oklahoma Shuttle and Lightning Express. They were initially wanted to be identical except for the lettering on the sides. We were denied on that. They had to be different. We had to change the paint scheme. I think to stay with the precedent, they need to be declined also.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay, Wes, I believe. Sir, if I can have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
My name is Wes Preble, 3405 Northwest 39th Street. Don't really have anything additional to say to what Carl said. Biggest thing is, I don't know what the size of the sticker, but to me, from a customer perspective, it's very difficult to differentiate between Star Cab and Star Cab van. So I would echo Carl's opinions.
All right, thank you very much. And then we have somebody else who wants to speak. Gozi, I'm sorry. And I understand you want to speak on item A and D, so this would be for item A. If I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
My name is Gazi Akabweze, 700 Northeast 122nd of Oklahoma City, and basically my colleagues have stated our concern is going to bring a lot of confusion out there, especially at the airport, and the city have actually set a precedent. Last time they denied a Thunder Cab and Thunder Lightning of the same issue. I think if the city continue in that aspect, that will be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have anybody else here to speak on item 5A? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our new inspector. It'll be Sergeant Chris Bales, who's filled an extra position for us, so now it'll be 2 of us operating out the vehicle fire unit. There's not much I can add to anyone else about Star Cabs, other than just to remind everyone that a few months ago we ran into the same issue or similar issue with NASCAB, who had identical paint scheme in the name, in which they were denied at that time. I looked over Star Cab's current application. I'm kind of confused on the necessity of their vans, or separating their vans and their cars, considering some vans can be used as taxi service. So I was kind of confused on which one they were trying to do, just add a separate company under the Star Cab van, or if they were wanting to be a shuttle service. So that's what's kind of confused me on that. Other than that, that's all I can add. If anyone had any questions for us.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, anybody else that wants to speak on item 5A? Okay, can we have staff comments, please?
Okay, well, you've got our complete report in front of you. I'm happy to answer those questions as I can. So action on this item is going to be at the Commission's discretion.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
Can the motion be to defer this until a representative can attend? Because I have questions, and I feel like it's only appropriate.
Let me just say, is there anybody here from Star Cab? Okay, then that would be a good motion.
My motion is to defer this until the applicant can have dialogue with us.
Okay, we have a motion to defer item 5A until someone from Star Cab can come and provide us some comments. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Yonkel, second by Commissioner Jenkins, to defer item 5A until a member of Star, or a representative of Star Cab. Council? Or?
Could we defer it until the following month in order to give a deadline or a date? And then if we need to defer it far after January?
So modify the motion to say to the January meeting, put it on the agenda for the January meeting, and ask staff to let Star Cab know we'd like to have somebody here.
Yes, and I need clarification that this is not, that they're going to understand this is not approved until it's full. They are not acting upon this in the marketplace until that meeting.
Okay. So would you agree on your motion to defer to the next meeting?
Yes, the motion is amended to defer this until the January meeting.
And ask staff to notify Star Cab to be here so we can ask them a couple questions.
Yes.
Okay. And you're good on that second? Okay. Do we have any talk on this item? Yes, ma'am.
I then would follow it up in that I have the same nature of questions that we've heard here. I think we just want to make sure that there is time and opportunity to, because it feels a little murky to me, and I want to make sure we're consistent with what we've done I feel like we don't understand the nature of what's driving this. So that I just want to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from with delaying it.
Okay. Any other talk on item 5A? Okay, we have a motion to defer item 5A to the January meeting and asking staff to notify StarCab to please be there so we can ask them a few questions. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is deferred. Okay, we move on now to 5B. Sunny Rowe, Yukon, Oklahoma 73099, and Karen Clark, Yukon, Oklahoma 73099, to consider request to, 1, establish stop control on Drover Lane at Northwest 7th Street, where Northwest 7th is the west approach of the intersection, and item 2, establish stop control on Northwest 7th Street at Drover Lane, where Northwest 7th Street is the east approach of the intersection. Anybody here to talk on item 5B? Please come on up. When you're done, we'll ask you to fill one of these out. Okay, if I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Hello, Council. My name is Sunny Rao. I live at 701 Evening Drive, Yukon, Oklahoma. And I'm here representing the Chisholm Crossing Homeowners Association and my neighborhood to ask that we have a couple of stop signs installed. I've read the study, that the city performed, and one of the things that I'd like to point out, the city said that we do meet certain criteria to have the stop signs put in. We have what looks like Part 1 of our request, which includes 2 stop signs, and Part 2, which includes 1 stop sign. And it almost looks like the Part 1 of the request will definitely fulfill what we are asking for, and maybe we can pull Part 2 out of there. And I don't know if you have slide or page number 10 available. Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, it looks like if a car had to stop on that corner of 7th and Drover that's included in Part 2, he or she would then have to stop again, leaving that intersection just a few feet away. It looks like 20, 30 feet maybe. And so it would almost be like a redundant stop sign. We do feel the need to have the stop signs in Part 1 of the request. We feel the need is very necessary. Although there haven't been any accidents at this location, there's been several close calls, myself included, and, coming in off a Mustang Road. When you come in off a Mustang Road, sometimes you have to go in between traffic that's moving at 45 miles an hour, meaning you might have to get moving just to get off of the street safely. And then once you enter the neighborhood, you can then slow down, but you don't ever expect to have somebody be in your lane when you're coming in off the intersection, and that's indeed what happens. And if you can go to page 11 on the request, the top photo on page 11 shows those mud tracks. You can see where some construction vehicles have indeed cut the corner right there, follow the mud tracks, and they're going into the oncoming traffic lane. Had those people been driving on Mustang Road, they wouldn't have that much mud on their tires coming in. So that's an indicator that these tracks are coming from our neighborhood and cutting that corner off, vice coming from the roadway. But we would just like to, that's all I really have to say about it, but we would just like to beg that you consider this, for the safety of our neighborhood. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just fill out one of the forms here, sir. Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on item 5B? Sir, please, come on up. Just fill out one of the forms when you're done. And if I could have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name is Bill Haynes. I reside at 11308 Northwest 8th Street in Chisholm Crossing. And I'm just here to support our request because I've encountered several near misses at that intersection, and stop signs would definitely help the traffic flow and increase the safety of our neighborhood. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, sir, if you could fill that out. Okay, anybody else to speak on item 5B? All right, can we have staff input, please?
Okay, well, you've got a complete staff report before you. One of the things that we routinely do on these applications when they come in now, especially for stop controls in neighborhoods, we go ahead and run a spot speed study. And in this particular case, we don't. There's, their 85th percentile speed on 7th Street is 26. So as far as that goes, as far as neighborhood speed observance goes, it's probably fairly good. In this particular case, as Mr. Rowe noted, the intersections do meet the city's criteria for considering stop control simply based on traffic volumes through the intersection. Would support his request to drop the second portion of this item, which would be the westbound stop control on 7th Street where it intersects with Drover. That, a lot of times intersections like that function well with either no control or with maybe yield control. So action on the first portion, which is the north-south stops on Drover Lane at 7th Street, would be at the council's or the commission's discretion.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Motion to support Part 1 with the stop signs and change Part 2 to a yield.
Council, is that okay?
Yeah, a yield can be done administratively, so we can
Okay.
we can take care of that. You wouldn't need necessarily a motion on that because the only action before you is whether or not you're looking at stop control.
Then the motion is to support Part 1 of the request, to deny Part 2 of the request, because I think the redundancy possibly invites someone to run at least one of those stop signs.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5B, Part 1, and to disapprove item 5B, Part 2 from Commissioner Yonkel. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Schuline. Do we have any discussion on it? Okay, we have a ma'am.
I just want to make sure that if we administratively can also make sure the yield is part of, okay, all right.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve item 5B, Section 1, Part 1, and to disapprove 5B, Part 2 from Commissioner Yonkel, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, item 5C. J.C. Reese, Moore, Oklahoma, 73160, to consider a request to change the speed limit on Southeastern Avenue from the East Interstate Highway 240, I-240, Service Road on the north side of I-240, Southeast 74th Street, to the City of Oklahoma City and City of Moore corporate limits, approximately 1/2 to the south of Southeast 89th Street, to change it from 40 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour. Do you have anybody here to speak on item 5C? Okay, can we have staff input, please?
All right, you got comments before you. When we looked at this item initially, we were looking at a broader corridor on Eastern Avenue. This particular portion of Eastern is a little bit on the unique side because basically what it does is it functions as a connection between the I-240 interchange and the City of Moore. Along outside City of Moore's corporate limits, there's very little development in the Oklahoma City area at this particular time, especially in the mile between 89th Street and up to 74th Street, where you've got like a Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad switch yard on the west side, and there's very, very little development on the east side of the street. We don't ordinarily advocate introducing like a higher speed limit zone into a situation like this where it's consistently 40 miles an hour for several miles along Eastern. However, this particular portion of Eastern really just functions as more or less as a commuter link at this point in time. And if at some point in time in the future when this portion of Eastern starts to develop, we can certainly go back and look at, regulating the speed limit, changing it to be something that's more appropriate. But at this point in time, there aren't any sight distance issues that would be created by raising the speed limit. So action on this item will be at your discretion.
Thank you. We have a motion concerning item 5C.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second? We have a second from Commissioner Jenkins. Any talk on item 5C? Okay, we have a motion to approve 5C from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. Can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, 5D from the Municipal Councilor's Office to consider extending the deadline from February 15, 2015 to April 30, 2015 for transportation network vehicle operators to submit driver applications. Do we have anybody here who'd like to speak on item 5D? Okay. Yes, sir. All right. Well, let's see here. We have one already on here. Let's go with Gozi. Did you want to speak? Because you're already on here, so we'll have you come up. I already have your information. Remember, you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you again, council members. I want to make understand that we are talking about the Uber cab transportation here. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, what this is bringing up is not for the companies to apply to be an operating. It's for the vehicle operators once a company is approved.
Yes.
Because the time in and the work that had to get done with the city council and the city council, transportation network companies weren't able to, they still have a deadline that's past this meeting. So
Yes.
there's no approved company yet that meets. So therefore, vehicle operators can't apply, and they have a certain amount in time in the ordinance that we need to give them. This extending the deadline would give the operators time to apply.
Okay. I would think they need to make a move by applying, for the city to have something to work on towards the extension. If they have not put in application, I don't see the reason why they should come in here to ask. You made a deadline for them, and they should follow the deadline. And then if they could not finish, I was looking through the website, I noticed that they have not even put in an application. And they should follow the rules that are set forth by this council. If they were falling behind due to a lot of things to do, then they can come back for extension of time, but they need to show some good faith.
Right. And sir, just to make it clear, it's the city that's asking for the extension.
Oh, the city is asking.
Yes, please. Okay. Please understand that because of the time it took to get through us, changes, and then to the city council and the extra work that they did on it, and then they even came back to us on some thoughts, and it went back and forth. The time that was in the ordinance, because of when it finally got approved, the city just can't ask the vehicle operators to meet that timeline and get there in time. So the city is asking us to approve an extension so the vehicle operators could apply once the transportation companies are in. So it's because of the extra time it took to get the ordinance approved. It had nothing to do with the transportation companies or the drivers even.
I see.
This is just so we can be fair to them to allow them to go ahead and go.
Okay.
So it's not them, not yet. I mean, hopefully everybody applies and everything works great and the timeline works.
In fairness to that, I will let the council decide based on what the city recommended. I cannot make that judgment, but I was with the assumption that is the company that is applying the extension.
From the city.
So we go by your decision.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
I would think
that's a good point.
I would think if you remain with the original plan, that would be better for everybody. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. And then Mr. Allen, Joey, if I can have your name, your address, and you have up to 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Joey Allen, 4801 Northwest 10th Street in Oklahoma City, 73127. I'm confused. The ordinance didn't change after October when it was approved by the City Council, did it?
Well, Council, would you like to wait till a motion?
Here's my confusion. I thought that they had 30 days from the time that it became law, or that the ordinance is December 20th their first deadline for filing as companies. I realize we're talking about two separate things, but is the 20th the first time their first deadline for filing as a company, as a TNC? So they've got until this Saturday?
The Can you go back to where you were wanting to? Okay, real. Okay, according to the ordinance that passed on October 21st, the companies themselves had 30 days after effective date, which would be the end of this. They have 1 week from today, so basically then by Saturday. The TNC license application has to be into our office completed at that time.
Gotcha.
The effect of that is that the TNC license, because currently it's not at this meeting, so they can't be granted a license today.
So they can't do that.
So it would be in January.
January would be the earliest that they have the opportunity.
The deadline for drivers to receive a permit, according to the current ordinance, states that it could be on February 13th of next year, which would actually give the city 2 to 3 weeks to give permits for all TNV drivers.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that doesn't grant enough time in order to go through all of the applications that would be coming in.
Okay.
So that would give us 3 weeks to basically bring in everybody for those companies. So what we're asking is just an extension of that time, which is still within the ordinance. As quoted, it states, or such later date as may be established by the Traffic Commission in the event that the license is actually delayed.
Okay.
And since there was a delay in not getting it onto this this
just because
meeting,
of time, because of the timing.
Exactly. The timing of the new amendments that were made and the delay on approval caused the deadline effective date to be delayed as well. So that's where the delay comes in. It only gives the city, the police officers, and the licensing company
I understand that better. So it's basically from the time, should they be approved in January, then that only gives Sergeant Dancy that 3-week window.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're asking from February 15th to April 30th?
Yes. And it's going to be allow that the police to have enough time in order to go forward and give the proper permitting process and not have just the 3 weeks.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I understand. I'm not happy, but I understand. Since, as of everything I can determine as of today, neither company have even applied for their corporation commission filings yet. I don't see how they're going to have all of that turned into you by next week. So my concern was that we're just now giving them 8 months after the ordinance was approved before they actually have to do anything. That was my big concern. So I understand. I'm not going to ask that you change anything. I understand where you're coming from now, but I just think that we have bent over backwards to give them more than enough time to get in line, and we're not seeing any indication other than an article in the paper saying, yes, we intend to play by your rules to get that done. So thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody else that would like to speak on item? Yes, sir. Come on up. We already have your paperwork, so you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay. I believe this is inappropriate to put through today. I think it should be denied and maybe put off to the next meeting after Uber gets their things filed. If they haven't got it filed yet, they've just got a few more days. If they don't get it filed by the 20th, I think the whole point is moot. We're just, acting preemptively. So I think we should take the wait and see stance, see if they get their stuff filed by the 20th, and then if they get approved on the next meeting, immediately following that, you can pass this and extend it to whatever is appropriate. But to extend it now, I think is just too early, because we don't even know that they're going to file their papers. We don't know that they truly intend to file their papers. That's it.
All right. Thank you very much. Sir, did you want to come up and talk to? We already have your paperwork on file, so you have up to 5 minutes.
Hello again. Essentially the same argument that Carl has made. To me, it makes no sense to put the cart before the horse. Uber, Lyft have not even filled their paperwork in yet. They have until Saturday, correct? Well, Friday or Monday. What is it, since it's a Saturday?
20th.
So that is a Saturday. They can't file on Saturday, then, correct? So they have until this Friday to file. They haven't filed yet. My next question is, if they don't file, are they illegal on the 21st? And if so, how is that going to be enforced? I know that's a different issue there. but I think that's something that needs to be addressed. You know, you can't just assume that they're going to file. You know, we all know what you do when you assume. And I think that the council needs to consider that and wait, and based on if they file, then in the next meeting, more than willing to change, because I understand the time constraints, but why even address this until we get an application on file? Doesn't make any sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on item 5D? Sure, come on up. Hold on one second. We'll just wait till you get here. All right, go ahead, sir.
I didn't think about this before, actually. I had thought about it, but I didn't bring it up while I was standing here. Okay, let's say Uber does not file by the 20th. What state does that leave for their operation? If they don't file by the 20th, are they still allowed to operate? Will they be in violation? Will their drivers be stopped for not operating under a company after the 20th? I'd like to know what the city intends to do there, and I think that there needs to be some appropriate action there. Because if they don't get their stuff filed by the 20th, and they've had plenty of time, Uber's a big company, they've got lots of people working for them. If they don't file by the 20th, I think they should be off the street for New Year's Eve, and anywhere between now and the next meeting or whenever they get their act together. And that's what I got to say.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else on item 5D? Okay, can I have a motion concerning, oh, I'm sorry, we need staff input, don't we? You have anything?
We're just here to answer questions if you've got any regarding this.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have a motion concerning item 5D?
Make a motion that we table this to the January meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to defer this item to the January meeting.
Second.
And we have a second. The motion is from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Schuline. Any discussion on this item? Okay, let me defer to council here. Council, would this cause a problem if we defer?
The deferral to the January meeting would, I don't believe it would have an impact on since the February deadline is a few weeks after that, as long as this is deferred and determined upon the January meeting, it would not have an impact according to the current deadline that we have in our ordinance.
Right, so an example would be transportation companies file, it's an action item on the January meeting. We go through the process of approving or disapproving their license. Then we would have another item on there to say, okay, now the vehicle operators, because it's only 2-3 weeks, we'll give an extension to whatever. And you think that would be okay? Okay?
If that's your decision.
Okay. Any other talk on item 5D? Yes, sir.
I'd like to hear council address the question from the floor. If they don't make application by Friday, are they going to be legal?
Unfortunately, I cannot speak on behalf of the police and on what enforcement actions will be taken after the January meeting. However, or after the December deadline of this week, in order for me to speak on behalf of another officer, I just will go to say that if we do not have an application by the end of this month, then the current transportation network companies that are operating within the city would no longer have that grace period that is being granted to them.
It would just turn into a normal, somebody's not complying with the law, it goes through the process, people get informed in city leadership, and then they create an enforcement action, just like every law, every ordinance that applies. And of course, city manager's office, mayor's office, city council, all them weigh in. As far as the traffic commission, of course, we would probably want to make a general statement that everybody needs to comply with the ordinances. And then, so we say that to the vehicle operators, to the companies that are out there, whether it's a taxi, a limo, a wrecker, or whatever service that we are concerned about, we want them to follow all the ordinances, because they're there for a reason. And then on the other end, as we did when we found out about these vehicle for these transportation network vehicles, we were concerned, and we created a resolution to City Council saying, hey, we're concerned, we need something. And the city did a very good job getting to where we're at now. So I think it would be the same kind of thing would happen from the commission, which is if we find out that there are no transportation network companies and there are that service being out there, we would be concerned and ask the city to enforce the ordinance at the right time. I mean, that just would be a flow that I would think would go. But right now, everybody will be in compliance. We just have to assume that everybody's going to do the right thing and everybody will be in compliance. And if we find out in January that we don't have any, and we find out from the city staff that that service still going on, then we would make a comment to the appropriate people to say, please do what needs to be done. I mean, I think that's just a general summary of where we're at right now. That applies both to the other vehicles for hires that are out there and to our city management staff. Yes, sir.
So, for clarity, if this motion is approved, what is the absolute date that the grace period would be up?
Currently, the grace period for the license, the actual companies at this time, is the end of this week. That's the absolute deadline for the company. For the drivers is what we're discussing on an extension, because after the January meeting, if those companies are granted a license, we would only have 2 to 3 weeks in order to give permits to all of their drivers. So if this motion that's before you right now, that's being deferred to next meeting in January, if this motion is granted, it would defer the absolute deadline for drivers to April 30th of next year instead of February 13th.
But it has nothing to do with the transportation companies.
I understand.
That deadline is still there.
I understand.
Ma'am?
If this week's deadline is not met by the companies, which is the umbrella of the drivers, the point on drivers gets even stranger if the company deadline is not met. Isn't that right? I mean, can a driver meet an appropriate deadline if its umbrella company is not acting accordingly to the...
Yeah, they are not able to ask for a license to operate.
Okay.
If the company is not there to go against it.
Okay.
So then, in a general statement would be on the 21st,
yep,
all the vehicle operators would be in violation of our ordinance because the companies are not even in the process of submitting or anything like that. Now, if I could just make a statement, there are always exceptions. And of course, that may not be happy to some. But let's say the 10th of January they come and file. And yes, they missed their deadline, but they come in and file on the 10th of January. We all know how that works, that if they go ahead and proceed in. But at some point, the company will be in violation, and at some point, the vehicle operators will be operating in a violation of our ordinances.
So right now, the understanding of the room is if there's not a company filing by the 20th, they're in violation come the 21st. So, Sergeant Yancey, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I have a question for you. So, this weekend, if there's, hypothetical discussions just make me nervous. I'm just going to say it. But what do you see the action being if this 20th comes and goes and nobody's filed? Then what? I mean, they're still out there. There are. What position are you in at that point? And if you have to wait to know from somebody else, that's okay. I'm so sorry I'm putting you on the spot.
No.
But it's a curious room and it's a curious question.
I just want to kind of make it clear to everyone here and, of course, everyone out here is concerned about it. I go that the city is actually the one granting. I just want to make it clear again. Part of the reason for that is because of the numbers of vehicles that we anticipate and drivers as well to come in. I mean, we're talking about maybe hundreds are coming in because of the deadline that we met, that we originally had. It would be required for us, kind of cumbersome for us to meet the goals and then turn around what we normally call a roundup to initially do a couple of hundreds of drivers and vehicles inspections and such, and then 1 or 2 months later to do even more, because that's when we do our roundup, to do those same vehicles plus adding all limousine companies, all carriage companies, all taxi companies. So that's one of the reasons, or one of the things that were considered in making that decision.
And I think we all fully understand the driver of the question on the drivers.
Right.
But the question now is, if a company doesn't file come end of business on the 20th, the 21st rolls around and there is still an active group of technology drivers, but no business has filed, what position then do you find yourself in, and how is that handled?
Well, obviously, if the deadline that they were given came and gone, basically, that's what we're dealing with here. And that's the deadline that was set by the City Council, that we would obviously, as a police department, have to address any type of enforcements, and that would most likely come from the Chief of Police, and which direction and strategies in which we would to enforce those ordinances.
Okay. I apologize for putting you on the spot, but it's just, it's such so many things rely on.
Well, yeah, I would think that on the 21st, a city cop sees a vehicle for hire of this nature. I would assume they're not going to cite at that moment. The word will get up through the chain of command, as he's talking about, get up to the chief. Of course, then the chief works with counselor's office, city manager's office, and the decision is made of how to enforce it, letters be sent, whether it comes to us and we do some sort of something. There would probably be a leadership meeting to discuss how to best enforce a violation of this, if the violation does come. Am I right? Would that be kind of how that flow?
That is correct. Okay. Because if a lot of street officers, they have a deadline of the 20th to meet, 21st. However, a lot of street officers don't know, flat out just don't know if they submitted it or not. And honestly, because it is on a Saturday, so remind you of that, that even our office, the vehicle hire unit, if they, due to times that everyone gets off for the weekend, we wouldn't know if they met that deadline to submit it. Mind you, that's for submission, not approval. So even if they submitted it, of course, we still have to approve it, and it depends if all the requirements are there initially, or if any things had to be addressed within their application on whether or not that would or would not delay it.
Okay. Is that good, ma'am? Good. Okay. Thank you very much. Right. Sir, you said you wanted to have something. We already have your information on file.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up. You realize that since none of them are here to be approved today, that even if they submitted and had it here by next Monday, they're still going to be operating illegally in the city for 3 weeks. At best, at this point, because you're not going to be able to approve it until the January meeting, assuming, as Sergeant Dancy said, that they meet all of the criteria and they're ready to go. So part of me wants to say we've been nice long enough. They've operated for 14 months illegally in the city. They've known the deadline since October, and they continue to thumb their nose at us. So that's my position, is if something's got to be sent up the chain of command, then something should be sent up the chain of command immediately, because they're going to be operating at least 3 weeks illegally, assuming that they have everything done. Get through the Corporation Commission, get all their paperwork in, and have everything to the city clerk's office or to the licensing office by next Monday, which is a lot to ask for somebody who seems to have been dragging their feet for all these months. So I just thought I'd throw that in, that, why do we have to wait? We know they're going to be operating illegally or continue to operate illegally as they have for the last 14 months.
Well, just a statement on that. I think if they comply with the ordinance, the timeline, and there's grace period that has been put into the ordinance. So if they comply and ask for their company license, then it takes the process of coming to us, so there's a time delay there. That's part of the grace period. Then it gets approved. If it gets approved, then there's even grace period put into the ordinance to allow the operators now to go ahead and get licensed, vehicle checks, et cetera, et cetera. So just to be clear, I think, though, that they would be operating in accordance with the ordinance if they comply with all the deadlines.
But to be equally clear,
yes,
you wouldn't allow me to come in and say, I'm going to come apply next month, and I've got all my paperwork here, and I might turn it in, but I'm going to go ahead and haul passengers for the next 3 weeks. So I'm just saying that I'm not certain that just because they're big corporations and it might be difficult for them to send somebody to Oklahoma City to have this done, that this law is being applied equally to me as it is being applied to them. Because you would tell me, Sergeant Dancy would tell me, I'm sorry, but you can't haul any passengers until you get that done by the city, until you come and have your chauffeurs approved, and until you have your cars inspected, you can't do business here. So I think we're already giving, with all the grace periods, I think we're already giving them more leeway than would be extended to us. That's, I mean, just to be blunt about it, that's kind of the way I feel.
Understood.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else that wishes, well, we've already had that public comment. So did you want to say one last thing on here? Sure. Well, just a minute. Just wait till you get up here to the mic, as we have a motion on the floor.
Yes, I like the gentleman. He gave me the courage to get back up here. I think the company we're speaking of is in violation of the Chapter 56 that has been put out and reversed. And if I put for example, the company we talked about here, the Star Cab, we did not allow them go in operation, whether or not they're here or not. And then what we need to do actually is to help our police department. My brother here, Sergeant Dancy, they have a manpower to go out there and write tickets. They need to, because that revenue for the city, that's $750 per violation per vehicle. If they have 100 vehicles out there, do the math. We need to collect that. The city is growing. You guys are doing a good job. We need more money. Thank you.
Okay. Any other talk from up here on the horseshoe? We have a motion pending. Okay, we have a motion. Well, let me make sure here. Let me write it down. Who do we have? Hale, and that's what I thought. Okay. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Schuline, to defer item 5D to next meeting. Okay, can I have your votes, please? Okay, item is approved. Okay, item 6, comments from citizens. Anybody else wish to talk? Okay, reports and other items from the traffic commissioners, etc. Commissioner Littlefield.
I've been absent the past couple of months, and I'm going to ask that the Traffic Calming Subcommittee meet after the meeting in January. We agreed to that. And no real news from Ward 2. Thank you very much.
Okay, Commissioner Hale.
Nothing to report, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
I want to thank the Counselor's Office for the memo related to our discussion last month on the bicycles. So I'm assuming then from the memo that passed.
Yes.
Right. The memo that we had was talking about, is it when there's less than all the members here, but there is an actual quorum, is it a majority of the council, of the commission, or a majority of the quorum? And it's a majority of the quorum of who's here for the actions that we do. Okay. Commissioner Jenkins?
I don't have anything to report.
Okay. Commissioner Yonkel? Okay. Sir? Counselor, anything else? Yes.
I was just going to address the memo and just update you regarding that. I was going to let you know where that opinion resonated from. The Traffic Commission does have ordinances addressing it, and also policies and procedures that you've adopted in, I believe the last edition was from 2012. Neither of those actually address voting during a quorum, so we actually went and researched from what Robert's Rules discusses, and from that research we determined that a majority of the quorum would be sufficient in order to pass a motion before you. So
thank you for your work on that. Okay, sir?
Okay, at the end of your report, you see that we've got our standard report on yield signs that were installed administratively. Also, at the end of the November meeting, I believe Commissioner Witcher had questions regarding the availability of parking, especially the asking for more information on downtown parking garages, since we're looking at removing some metered parking spaces along Sheridan and Robinson. So we've got representatives from COTPA here today who can tell us, make an informal presentation on what the city has in the way of public garages.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation. We are Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority, not really knowing what questions you had, so please feel free to ask me anytime. I'm just going to go over just a basic what garages we have and where we are right now. And it's not working. As you can see, we currently operate and own 5 garages in the CBD, and we currently, our system, as far as right now, our current system, we have 115% occupancy. And so I've tried to put in where you can see the garages. Of course, we have the Sheridan Walker, which is located on the corner just south of here, the new Arts District Garage, which is directly south there on Colcord. And then we also operate the Cox, and then the Century Center, and the Santa Fe Garage. Those are the 5 that are public, COPTA operated. Now, as you can see, there's also the County Garage, which is up on Robert S. Kerr. There's also Main Street, which is on Main, across from, it's not actually on this map, but there's some other garages as well that are privately ran that do take public parking. So, and again, the Santa Fe Garage right now, currently it's 124% occupancy, but just to let you know, we do average around 250 transients or daily parkers a day. That's not including our events and other things like that, but so that kind of lets you know.
% park. Where how does one exceed 100%? I don't mean that to sound silly, but are they on the roof?
No, what we do is, because we look at our diversity of our parkers, you know, and if they're mostly all 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, we know they're all not going to be there at the same time. Also, the Santa Fe Hotel, or the Santa Fe Garage, has 2 hotels that it serves, the Skirvin and the Renaissance. You know, so that's another mix in there. So what we do is we monitor the numbers really closely. Sometimes if you'll see lots full or, you know, or whatever, it may be that there's a game that night, so we're preparing, you know, so we may not be able to park as many daily.
So that's how there's parking spaces visible, but the lot's full. Because
exactly.
They're reserved for other things.
Exactly.
Or paid for already.
Exactly.
Oh.
So we're always monitoring those numbers, and then that gives us an idea of whether we can allow people in for cash, what we call cash customers, or not. Okay. And the next garage is a Cox. Again, this one is 166% occupancy. This one is primarily used for events. It's used on weekends and evenings. That's why we can do a little higher occupancy during the day. Now, when we do have conferences, meetings, different things like that, it does skew our numbers, and we're, you know, sometimes scrambling. But that one is primarily events only. Okay. Century Center, as you know, it's currently closed. We plan to reopen that next month in January 2015. And again, it will also have monthly, daily, and event parking as well. And then the Sheridan Walker, as we said, 103. We average about 100 daily parkers there a day. I would gather to say probably most of those are doing business with City Hall. And then the Arts District Garage, we just opened that last month, so I don't really have numbers on it as well as yet, but it will be also monthly, daily, and event parking. And
I never thought I'd say that is a beautiful parking garage, but that is a beautiful parking garage.
Well, thank you.
I love it. I think the colors are just a nice addition.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We'll let TAP know.
How many spaces are in
How many in the new one? 802. Okay, and now let's go to on-street. I know you were looking at more on the garages, but just to bring up, with the on-street parking, we recently, in the last 2 years, have installed 125 of the new multi-space meters as part of Project 180. I have 50 more that have just been delivered that we'll be installing in the next 2 months, and that's primarily Robinson, a lot of those areas right now that have not or are not right now metered parking. So that's going to add an additional, I would say with 50, that's an additional probably 250, 300 spaces. We kind of try to figure, 1 meter per 5, 6 spaces on the multi-space. So that's going to add a lot of extra spaces that have not been on the street previously. The same way with the other ones that we have now, like around Myriad Gardens. All of those were no parking areas in Robinson and all of that. Now we'll have on-street parking. So with the Project 180, which added, approximately, I think, 700, 800 new spaces, we currently have 1,052 on-street parking spaces in the CDB. So I don't know if that answered your question, or please feel free if you have anything.
Well, I think he was just wondering how many parking spaces are out there, street, parking garage, what's the flow, where are we going? Like you just talked about, we're opening up a new one. We just opened a new one, an extended one, and then you're making all this extra on-street parking. And I think the concern was all that's going on in the city, is there enough parking in the city?
I would say yes, there's enough parking. It's not always, number one, close, and 2, free. Right. That's the biggest complaint we get. I mean, there is parking. You just you may not be able to get it front door. We are also have worked with Kimley Horn as a parking consultant, and they're doing a parking study right now, which is to include the convention site and hotel area, and also the new areas that's just recently been discussed, and the park. So that we'll be looking at as far as what parking is needed in those areas.
So in the next 5, 10 years, parking. Okay.
Yes.
So you're not only worried about right now, you're worrying what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years with parking.
But to let you know, we are, looking at that as well.
Okay. And I have a question, but does anybody else on the Horseshoe?
I have a question.
Okay. Let's start over here.
I'm scared to death to bring this up, but I read and it's purely a comment, I recently read an article about, it was probably San Francisco, New York City, a couple of other really highly populated, dense traffic parking situations, where there is new phone app technology where you can sign up, like TNC operations, and somebody will meet you at a particular corner. For a fee, they will park your car wherever in the world they have a place to park your car. And then when you're ready to be picked up, you go to your app, and they have so many minutes to get it back to you. I can't remember the name of it. It has a name, but I was kind of fascinated by that. Get ready.
Well, I know they do have, and we've also looked at it where you have on-demand, where your higher peaks, you can increase the rate automatically. So you go up, and it may be,
Where my concern would be is that these would be prepaid parking spaces in public garages, where now they're being sublet. If you all are kind of following my thinking here.
Okay, thank you. Down over here. You have something? Go ahead, sir.
I wanted to ask, I know there's a new garage in Midtown on 10th Street. I guess that's private. I saw 2 additional parking garages proposed this weekend, and when you're talking about $4.99.
And they're private, which is great. And that's what we, I'll say as COPTA and as the city, encourage. We want private development in their own parking. A lot of times they don't because there's no revenue, you know. So. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, that particular, I can't explain. We, as COPTA, only owns the parking floors of that area. For those of you who are not familiar with it, there's 2 floors underground. There's a street level and a second street retail, and then there's a 3rd and 4th level parking. Okay, we only own the parking. That was another developer. We had 3 developers on that property, or 3 contractors on that property at the same time. You know, doing the inside work, doing the outside. We were working on the garage. As soon as we feel that it's safe as far as the facade and what they're doing on the outside, we'll open it back up. We're just trying to finish up some things, so hopefully it'll be open really soon. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. We hope to have it finished really soon.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Okay, my point is the parking meters, Saturday. Years ago, we changed and made Saturday a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Parking meters still show Saturday on them, both the new ones and the old ones.
Yes.
I mean, is that something we still want to do?
It's my understanding that's in the works.
To
yes.
Just
to
advertise it Monday through Friday?
No, to enforce Monday through Saturday.
To change, to go back to Saturday? Have you heard?
Because of
Okay.
complaints, yeah.
Okay, so we may go the other way. An ordinance change may come to say, let's go back to pay Saturday.
Yes.
Compared to it being a holiday. I'm sorry? Well, see, that's where I'm going is I went to an event downtown. People were plugging the meters on Saturday, and I was walking by, and I'm like, no, you don't need to pay. What do you mean? No, you don't need to pay on Saturday. It's a holiday. But they're advertised for Saturday. So you're thinking that something may come down, changing it back the way it was, that Saturday would not be a holiday.
Yes. It's my understanding it's currently in the works.
Okay. So if it doesn't get in the works,
then
could you consider maybe making the advertisement
And I think
appropriate?
that was some confusion on the ordinance because one part it does say Monday through
Saturday.
Yeah,
And
Monday
then it makes
through Saturday
a holiday.
except for holidays, and then another part where
correct.
Two chapters before it identifies the holidays. So,
Right,
yeah.
exactly. So, okay. So if you could just look at that when it all comes about. Okay, anything else? I think that's the input that we were looking for. So thank you very much.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Sir, do you have anything else?
Well, since we're talking of parking, by the latter part of this month, there are a number of parking spaces which will be available for you to use that are just on the south side of this building. I'll send you information on that. You'll need to get some passes through us, but you won't, come the next meeting, you shouldn't have to park in the Sheridan Walker garage.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Anything else? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Can I have a vote? Okay. We're out of here.